Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome for Grow Impact Days. I'm very happy that all of you are here tuning in for the session for today that are focusing on investors. Some of you also attended the session yesterday that focused on startups, and I do hope that you enjoyed the program yesterday. The program for today, as you can see on the slide, consists of a keynote from Vækstfonden, a keynote from Danske Bank, and a panel discussion with both national VCs, international VC, and a local angel investor. I do hope that you will enjoy the program for today, and I also hope that I will see you for the session tomorrow that will focus on collaboration between public and private institutions. And now I'll give the word to you, Lasse.
Thank you very much, Linda. And also, as mentioned yesterday, we're really happy that we have great partners who joined in to help us make this event happen. So thank you very much Incuba, the City of Aarhus, Aarhus University, Aarhus Investor Summit, Erhvervsstyrelsen, Danske Bank, and Innovationsfonden. Thank you very much. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, there's a little bit of a sour part to this in the sense that we actually wanted this event to be a physical event at the City Hall here in Aarhus. But due to the COVID situation, sadly, we have to do it this way. Now, it isn't all sad because it actually allows us to add a little bit of extra visual special effects. So when I do like this, I can turn all the attention to me and have you guys focus on what I say. But the focus of today is the investor ecosystem around investing in impact startups. And to kick us off today, I'm very happy to welcome Mona Juul, Member of Parliament. Take it away, Mona.
Hi there, my name is Mona Juul, and I'm a member of the Danish Parliament for the Conservative Party, elected from Aarhus. Mostly interested in and working for the conditions and green transitions of Danish companies. Thank you for inviting me to give a short opening speech to the conference Grow Impact Online Days. Great program focusing on the ecosystems from different perspectives. Great speakers from corporate, startups and public institutions from Central Region Aarhus. I wish I could be there with you. I have so many things to learn. I have so many things to discuss. And I also have a lot on my heart. I have a lot to say. But let me be short in this introduction. And begin with taking you back to September when Denmark was rated number 6 out of 131 countries on the Global Innovation Index on ability to innovate. Number 6 in the world. That is something to be proud of. Better than being number 1 on taxes, I have to say. And we have worked in Denmark, and we are working to maintain this position. Companies, startups, and the public institutions in Denmark work every day on finding new ways to solve challenges in an attempt to make them better and greener. I will go as far as to say that it is the genes of the Danish people to renew, rethink, and reform current ways of doing this. This is not only the benefit, the corporate social responsibility of a business, but also to give future generations a healthy planet to live on, clean air to breathe and clean water to swim in. As you know, in 2020, a broad majority of the Danish Parliament adopted a climate agreement on green transformation of the industry and energy sector. The agreement paves the way to global leadership in terms of green energy, and it is an ambitious green transition of the industry and a venture on a future green technologies. Currently, Denmark is leading in the development of sustainable technologies such as renewable energy. But with this agreement, Denmark will become the first country in the world to begin constructions of 2 energy islands, which will produce electricity for more than 3 times Denmark's current capacity. Moreover, the energy islands will eventually be utilized to power to X, technologies that can store or convert green electricity into green fuels. I believe the reason we have success with the green transition in Denmark is due to the company's ability and willingness to prioritize, to innovate, and to develop new ways of doing business. Companies and startups can learn from each other and become better at the green transition through sharing knowledge and through collaborating both internationally, nationally and locally. The green transition is not just a philanthropy, but also a great opportunity for local business to work together and create a sustainable society for future generations. There's nothing philanthropic about that. I wish you all a great conference. In the meantime, I will continue the exciting political negotiation with exactly the 2 electric islands. Let's all go for it, because we can all be the change we want to see.
So we're happy that we have local politicians as Mona who really support this initiative. Next one up is Christian Winther, who's the investment director at Vækstfonden, who will give a talk about their investment strategy in green impact startups.
All right, and welcome to this next session. I'm very happy that we have Christian from Vækstfonden joining me here today. We'll learn more about how they see the impact industry and listen to how they work with startups within the space. So welcome, Christian.
Thank you, Lasse, and thank you for being able to speak to you all today. My name is Christian Winther. I'm from Vækstfonden, and I'm here to talk about how we make investments with impact. I'm going to share a presentation with you, so bear with me for a minute while I change to the presentation. Can you all? I hope you all can see the presentation. So first of all, I would like to share a few words about who we are and how we work. Vækstfonden is a Danish public foundation or financing institution. We're located in 8 different cities across Denmark, and including Aarhus. We are structured in 3 different, call it divisions or products, if you will. One is loans and guarantees, where we actually provide loans, either direct or guarantees, through other financial institutions to Danish companies. Another one is where we fund companies through equity. That is called venture capital, and then we have an indirect equity investment arm, which is actually investments through other funds, where we fund these funds, and they actually invest in companies across the board. A common denominator for all of it is that you need to be a Danish company in order for us to invest in you. All in all, we've existed since 1992. We've helped 9,200 companies since our beginning, and 60% of them are still active today. The aggregate amount of revenue is 117 billion Danish kroner, so it's quite a substantial amount of jobs and revenue we've secured. Speaking of jobs, in 2019, the companies that we've co-financed since 1992 had an aggregate of 5,000 employees. So actually, it's a way to ensure that Denmark is growing and thriving on new and innovative companies across across Denmark. We tend to say that we discover and develop companies that Denmark cannot miss out on, and together with the companies, we put things in motion and people to work. And I'm proud to say that our shareholders are 6 million Danish people who expect a long-term return, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of other things I'll come back to in just a second. We are investing throughout Denmark, so it's not, even though we're our head office is in Copenhagen, I'm proud to say that we are actually investing widely spread across the region. And for those of you who are situated in Aarhus, the regional Midtjylland is 28% of our total financing in 2019. When we, I'm working out of the equity part of Vækstfonden, and when we invest in companies, these are sort of the life cycle part which we are typically investing in. So startup companies, actually companies that where you have completed a product development, you are on the edge to bring it to the market, and or I've just started to bring it to the market, and you have a great scaling potential and a strong team within your company. To us, perhaps just to elaborate a bit on that, it's essential that you have a strong team behind you or with you, because having invested in a substantial amount of companies across, over the years, we have discovered, as anyone else, that the team is actually probably the most important component of a good and thriving venture company. And then early stage companies completed also obviously a product development phase, having a good turnover and a strong pipeline, and have positive earnings, positive equity. So that's a more mature type of company than the actual startups that I talked about before. And that type of company basically takes you through to sort of the upper side of what we invest in, which is really the established companies where you exceed 250 employees, and it's not that we are terribly set on these boundaries, but it's sort of the ballpark where we are moving in within. I said before that when we or our shareholders, the 6 million Danish people, they look to us to obviously get a good return on our invested capital, but also on three other things, which is really the power of innovation. So develop our ability in Denmark to innovate and bring to market exciting new products and services. Also yield to society. So in terms of what this company and what we then ultimately can bring to Denmark. So support development throughout Denmark. So that means investing in all of the regions which I talked about before, but also activate Danish savings for Danish companies, and then finally acting responsibly. So support green conversion, and also act to promote UN Sustainable Development Goals. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. When we invest in Vækstfonden in equity, in startups and developing companies, then not only do we bring obviously capital to the company, but we also help develop the company as such. So we have a good and sound way of working with the portfolio companies. Basically build it on accumulated experiences from more than 100 Danish startups we have been investing in equity throughout the years. So we have been investing and also exiting again, and I'm sure you would know some of the companies that we've invested in over the years. But we also we also bring a good toolbox and expertise when entering a company. So we work actively with the company to help develop the way that or the ability of the company to develop. So we have a huge network. For example, we have our own legal team, which can also from time to time be of support to the companies. And we also can help with various kinds of organizational development. We've experienced that as I said before, team is extremely important in that phase of a company's life cycle, and obviously not all of the founders that we've seen over the period of time has had a huge management experience, but so it's that's HR is one of the key things that we're helping our companies to develop. And obviously, finally, it's making the famous exit at the end of our investment area is obviously also something where we have an extended or an extensive experience. I'll bring you two cases today of companies that we've actually invested in, and which I would call impact companies. One of the cases is our investment in AgroIntelli. It's an Aarhus based company. Basically, it's the future of farming, as it says on the slide. It's farming with use of robots. So our future, as we see it, is, and I'm talking now about the whole planet. The future is going to be hot. One third of the planet's arable land has gone over the past 40 years. We are seeing erosion of land. We are seeing pollution, and the temperature is rising between, I think, 0.5 and 1.7 degrees Celsius throughout this century, and that's only the moderate case. So we are seeing a much more hot future. We're also seeing a lonely future. Basically, over the past 40 years, we've seen about 2/3 of the of our biodiversity vanish, and 10% is due to climate change, and most of it is due to overexploitation of the fields. So we're seeing a future where it becomes more and more vital to be able to basically do an effective or efficient farming of our food. This means that we have to have a reduced water infiltration capacity. We have an increased risk of erosion in the earth, and with less biodiversity, we also have a limited root growth with lower soil volume access per plant. It's illustrated on the picture here, where basically the pressure that you have from the vehicles moving on the soil, as well as the biodiversity, makes it more difficult to grow plants. So the solution for that is basically to do it in the future, or farm in the future, through robots. Not only do these vehicles obviously use less manpower, but also the pressure they apply on the soil is lower, and their ability to basically work with how much fertilizer should I apply to the soil, how much water should I apply. All of that can be handled in the machines. Here, a couple of pictures. So, as it says here, the platform drives precision farming and conservation agriculture. It enables autonomous farming and reduces reliance on manual labor, as I said before, but also the use of fertilizer and use of fuel, and it indirectly increases the ability for other species to thrive in the soil, and therefore improves also farm economics. An important tool for us in the future. Just give you a few more pictures of the robot. By the way, can also work during nighttime. So a very interesting case. When we evaluate cases like this, we tend to look at the UN SDG goals, the 17. And precisely this case, this impact case, Agrantelli is helping, so to say, the 6th, the 12th, the 13th, and the 15th UN goal going forward. So that is, in my definition, at least, an impact investment from Vækstfonden. Another impact investment from Vækstfonden is our investment in Nordic Harvest. Nordic Harvest is our view, at least, on the future of locally produced high quality fresh greens. Again, the future is hot and lonely, but not only hot and lonely, it's also crowded. Already now 60% of the world's population lives in cities, and we expect that the population on the planet grows to 10 billion people in 2050. So this significant increase in population combined with the 60% urban population means that we need to identify ways to feed all these people, and without transporting the food all too much. The solution for that, or part of the solution for that, is what is referred to as vertical farming. So basically, you grow in plant production in various shifts, and you are able to, because it's grown in that way, you are able to very precisely control the growth of the plants, and also you can manage to develop the plants in especially the best way that for the plants, so they are being developed at best. There are other advantages in doing it like this, both in terms of the yield per square meter. The vertical farm is 25 times more or better in terms of yield per square meter, 25 times better, and also in terms of water usage, you are able to utilize the water in a significantly better way than you are on the field. So you'd only have 0.4% of the water in the vertical farm as you compared to open field production. So very clear advantages in growing it this way. Let alone the fact that you could actually produce this very close to the city, so you don't have to transport the yield from, or the plants from far away to into the city. So for many reasons, this is a very good way to develop for plants and food for the future urban population. How big is big? As I said before, since you're doing it in doing the actual growth in different levels here, you actually, and you can see it to your right, you can see a significant amount of levels of lettuce, I think this is. And on your left, you can actually see the size of the building which is located in, and also from the people moving in this space, you can also get a feel for how high it actually is. Very interesting way of developing the future food. Yeah. So basically, this growth investment or this impact investment supports, as we see it, the 5 of the 17 UN goals: zero hunger, clean water and sanitation, sustainable cities and communities, as well as climate action and life on land. So finally, just wanted to invite those of you who have very interesting ideas and need financing to just come forward, approach us. My credentials or my contacts are seen here on the left, and feel free to drop me an email or reach out for a discussion of when your company is ready for investment from Vækstfonden. Thank you, Lasse.
Great, thank you, Christian. Thanks for sharing your insights and really interesting cases that you brought with you there. I guess you see a lot of companies with some of the people that reaches out to you. Do you have any view on some of the interesting trends that we see in impact right now? What are the industries that's really moving, where we as investors can look to find interesting new companies?
Yeah, well, great question. I keep asking that myself all the time. But I'd say one of the places where we in Denmark are especially good is I think in renewable energy. I think everybody would agree on that. We've had a long tradition for being first movers within renewable. And so obviously we see a substantial amount of things in that space. Also, we tend to see more and more in buildings and materials, I would say, food is really coming along. So I guess those would be sort of the and all the way also waste. Waste is definitely also a thriving space for impact investments.
When we look at the ecosystem, what are some of the main challenges that you see? I think it's safe to say that this is a different ecosystem than the traditional tech hockey stick growth application type of companies. What are some of the main issues that you see in the impact startup ecosystem as it is right now?
Honestly, I think we've been as investors in basically IT and medical companies and so on and so forth. I think we've been very how do you say? We've been thriving on certain ways of best practices of developing those types of businesses, and many of the cases, at least approach which is shown to us. First of all, it's the way of thinking within these ecosystems are new or different to the way that our traditional venture or portfolio companies are working. So we as investors have to sort of adjust to this new ecosystem. And also, I think some of them are quite capex intensive, and capex intensive companies are not typically the thriving venture opportunity. So it's not that we can't do it, but it's just different from the way that we've been investing so far in all of the venture funds. I would say not only in Denmark but across the world, as far as I can see.
All right, Christian, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck on your future endeavors in this space as well. And really happy to have you in Aarhus to take part in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Lasse. Glad to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian and Lasse. Next one up is one of our key partners within this initiative. It's Danske Bank and Klavs Hjort, who is the Senior Vice President for Growth and Impact. They're one of the most important players within the ecosystem, so I've been really looking forward to see what you have in store for us. So I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Klavs Hjort from Danske Bank. Could you please introduce yourself, Klavs?
Thank you, Linda, and hello to everyone. My name is Klavs Hjort. I'm running a team in Danske Bank called Growth and Impact, where we work with Nordic startups, and we strive to help them to scale their business and to increase their impact for the better sake of all of us. Today, I'm going to talk about a segment we call green growth, and I'm going to share how we understand their business and how we look at them, which is handy for us being their advisors, but I guess also interesting for investors on how to screen them and how to work with them. For now, what I'm showing is mainly our hypothesis. At the last slide, I'm going to show you our approach to a more fact-based approach. We will launch a report in April where we will test our hypothesis, and of course I will share the report when it's done, and I hope some of you will be looking at it. But let me just start. So how we look at the market is that green is the new black, and I guess many will agree with us to that. Last year in 2020, April, we did analysis of impact startups in the Nordics, and across Nordics markets, we found a little bit more than 1,000 impact startups, and close to 50% of those have some kind of relation to a green transition, working with either SDG 9, 7, 11, 12, 13, or 14. And also, if we look at the investor side, we have data from Dealroom stating that looking at VC investments in impact startups in Europe accumulated since 2015, close to 50 billion euro goes to either startups working with affordable and clean energy or within SDG number 13, climate action. And the reason for, or part of the reason for all this happening is that regulation and public funding programs will drive this as a business area with lots of opportunities for growth and jobs and better well-being for all of us. The way we look at green entrepreneurs is very similar to how we approach tech startups. They share a lot of the same life cycles. They are designed to grow fast and go global. They deliberately accept negative results in pursuit of top-line growth, and they are funded by risk capital through a number of life cycles, from business angels to VCs, to bigger VCs, and eventually an exit or a big IPO. The green startups, they operate across industries, and some of the most important ones are agri-food and energy and buildings and materials, and of course transportation. And many of them will be spin-outs from research in universities or from large corporates. And for that reason, many of them will have strong IP or patents to protect their future business. But they follow the J-curve, as we know from the tech entrepreneurs, and you can see on the slide a number of the most prominent ones from the Nordic ecosystem brand names. However, if we want to not just take them as one segment, but try to understand what characterizes them and what to be aware of as an investor or as a bank trying to help them, we want to highlight, we see them as a heterogeneous segment with different types of risk. On the x-axis on this slide, you see the risk related to the product market risk, the more commercial types of risk, and on the y-axis you have the more R&D types of risk. And if you have this 2x2 matrix, then you have four subsegments. If you look at the one from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, we call them green tech. You should look at them as traditional tech entrepreneurs with very low risk. Of course, they have risk that they need to accommodate, but modest risk or relative risk are low, both in terms of R&D and product market risk. And then you have the three other types, either facing a huge product market risk or a high R&D risk with different types of similarities that they have to deal with. On the next slide that I'm showing you here, we have tried to insert 4 examples of Danish startups that we find representative of the 4 different subsegments. I'm sure many of you will know Too Good To Go, a very, very strong case out in at least 15 markets already, being funded just like we know from a more traditional SaaS company, for example, within the tech industry. Knowing that this is hosted by the Aarhus startup ecosystem, I'm sure many of you will also be familiar with Punt. And for sure, Thomas and his team will be able to tell the story about spending a lot of time in the lab, trying to deal with the on-disk related to now wanting to replace traditional plastic with a more biodegradable one. And then we have green mobility and green hydrogen systems as 2 other representatives of companies in the different subsegments. The way we look at them, if we then look at the risk that they have and the issues that we need to be aware of, and that we also believe investors should be aware of when screening them and working with them. If we take the companies like Punt, for example, we have to understand that this is very complex R&D in need of many engineering capabilities. Also understanding their efforts and capabilities of being able to go from the lab and then all of a sudden being able to do mass manufacturing, ensuring high product quality, and also to be aware of the sustainability issues that is related to that type of industry. For those of you knowing SaaS-B, for example, you'll be able to go in and see the typical risk related to different industries. And then from a funding perspective, what is really, really important, and I'm sure also the founders of Punt will consent to this, getting money for prototype working, because you don't have revenues early days, but you need some funding to help you to demonstrate that you can connect or not in terms of the product. And on the opposite side, if you look at companies with a high product market risk, it's very much about being able to understand the customers and their needs and the value chain that you're operating in, having commercial capabilities on board in the team, having a distribution power, knowing the industry sustainability issues for that segment as well, of course, and then also understanding how to work with working capital. So you have the muscles and don't run out of liquidity in when you start scaling your business. For the green tech companies where we had the logo of Too Good To Go, I'm sure some of them will say that it's difficult to find money, but there are plenty of different funding vehicles out in the market already. They will be able to find business angels who find their business appealing, and they will be able to find VCs. So no need to ask for new vehicles for those 2. But for companies like Punt, in Denmark, we need a prototype fund that will make it easy for them to get public funding to stay in the lab and connect and do their R&D. And similar, we also know from our customers that if you are a company like Green Mobility, for example, dealing with high product market risk, then they need some kind of go-to-market fund that can enable them to afford to sell a product large scale. And then, of course, the real green deep tech companies, they face both challenges of having a need for a prototype fund or a go-to-market fund. And just to illustrate how we think of which investors you should look for, depending on which type of subsegment within the green growth segment you belong to. For the green tech companies, we believe it's business angels and tech VCs and also institutions like us and banks. We are able to understand their business models and can see revenue coming in, and potentially we can support them with money on top of equity funding. For the pond-like companies, we cannot stress the importance of public funding towards that segment. There will also be corporate VCs that might find it interesting from a strategic point of view to do investments. And it could also be that there would be family offices having a strong engineering background and believing in what's cooking in that company. If we look at the green deep tech, then of course you both need the public funding, the corporate VCs, but you could also look for not a partnership, but just a commercial partnership. Teaming up with a company having distribution power, or who understands the value chain or understand the customer needs, and then do some kind of alliance or agreement that enables the strong R&D efforts from the startup or the green tech company to join forces together with a big corporate that has more commercial capabilities on board. I hope you understood our way of thinking on these type of companies, and then some a little bit in numbers in terms of how is the development for impact startups in terms of funding. And as you can see here in 2020, $6 billion was invested in purpose-driven tech companies in Europe. And the very good news is that from a relative perspective, you can see that the Nordic countries are doing really, really well. So if we look in 2020, for example, close to 30% of the VC investments in the Nordics went to what we call impact startups. Whereas on a global level, the percentage is down to, is it around 7? And in Europe, it's 15. So I think we can claim that the investors investing in the Nordics are driving the green and the impact tech revolution, which is very promising. However, a little bit sad news from a Danish perspective is that we are not the one among the 4 Nordic countries driving it. It's Sweden again who takes the lead, having a percentage of above 40%. A big part of that is, of course, that we have seen some major investments in Sweden, especially around Northvolt. But that shouldn't be an excuse for Denmark being the purest, the performing the least among Finnish and Norwegian and Sweden, being down around 6 to 7%. So I do hope that looking at numbers in 21 to this year and the following years, we will see an increasing trend also in Denmark. And as promised in the beginning of my presentation here, we are working to have a fact-based test of our hypothesis to the segment of the green growth companies. So in around April 21, together with the Deal Room and the Green Innovation Group, we will publish a report where we will test a number of myths or hypotheses around the green growth companies. Are they more capital intensive than early stage tech? Are they dependent on public funding, as I alluded to as was the case with Pond, for example? And do tech VCs invest in green growth? Yes or no? Are corporate VCs active as we anticipate they could be? And is it true that commercial growth or green growth teams lack commercial experiences, having a lot of engineers on board, but not having any salespersons? And then also to find out what are the strongholds of Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland compared to each other. We are really, really looking forward to have this report done and of course we will share it with Grow Impact so they can distribute it to all of you who may find it relevant.
Thank you very much, Klavs, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is about public funding. You're talking a lot about how important it is that they do public collaboration and they also have access to some kind of public funding. How well do you think that we're doing in Denmark?
Luckily, Denmark has a strong tradition of having public funding available. I seem to remember a figure stating that Vækstfonden is part of 50% of all equity investments in the startup ecosystem in Denmark. That is a really high percentage, and I believe if you compare us with what's numbers in UK and Germany, they will be around 15-20%. So it's not about willingness from the public side to allocate money for growth. I think more it's to make transitions of where those money goes, where we will advocate that, especially within the green area, there's a high need of those money going into that segment. And that is, of course, also why it's promising that we see the government making those, I forgot the English word for it, but Den Grønne Fremtidsfond, having 25 billion Danish kroner available. And of course, if we can find local money from municipalities or cities following the same flow into green transitions, that would be welcomed. It is a struggle today. So even though that the money is in the system, I strongly advocate that we start allocating them for the green transition.
I'm glad that you said that, Klavs, because tomorrow we will have Søren Boel from the city of Aarhus, who's actually going to talk about a funding pool that they've created just for this purpose. So tune in tomorrow if you want to hear more about that. But I have another question, which is on the collaboration between startups and public and private cooperation, what your perspective on that is.
If we look at those startups having need of tapping into a commercial partnership with, for example, a large company, I cannot only stress the importance of that, and that the founders, typically with an engineering background, that they respect that it's not enough that you have a product that works. You also need to establish a company around it, being able to sell it and support functions. So I cannot stress that the sooner the better that they start looking into the value chains and potential partners, the better. Very often we see that they stay in the lab for 1 or 2 years too long, and then they run out of money because it also takes time to test a collaboration from a commercial perspective. It's not just in terms of products that it takes time, it also takes time. So a clear recommendation from our side is that almost from day one, start looking at who should actually be our partners in crime to get the product out of the lab into the market.
So I can understand that collaboration is a key word because it's been mentioned in a lot of our talks and it's something that startups really should have focus at. I know that Danske Bank is doing a lot of great stuff. Do you have any initiative that you would like to highlight for today that is relevant for the audience here?
One thing that we do to get a better understanding, that's what we get out of it, but also what we do to help these green startups is our acceleration program plus impact. We're going to run our 5th batch this Q1. It's organized together with WeWork Labs in Stockholm and RISE Research Institute Sweden and Sweden Food Tech. And we have a focus on agri-food startups. So if you belong to that segment and would like to go into a program being helped by both in terms of understanding circular business and the specific problems related to that for you, or you want just to improve your capabilities of scaling your business from a business perspective, please go to accelerator+impact.io and then you can read more and hopefully some of you will apply.
Thank you, Klavs, for joining in today. We will share the report with the audience as soon as we get it. And again, thank you for contributing with your insights on how the green transition is going.
Thank you so much, Linda and Grow Impact. Happy to participate and very happy that you put focus on this and especially that you are facilitating these kind of discussions together with the investors. It's very important that we find a way to collaborate, founders, financial institutions, and investors, to support businesses that will help us transition into a more green society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Klavs, for joining in today. We'll share the report as soon as it's ready with the audience, and I'll move forward to our next session, which is a panel debate with 3 different investors. We have a national VC, we have an international VC, and we also have a local angel investor in the panel. So take it away, Lasse.
All right, welcome to the investment panel of the Grow Impact Days. Today we're going to discuss how the investment ecosystem is running and what sort of things that we see out there right now, trends that's happening, and also how we can improve the ecosystem from the investor's point of view when it comes to impact startups. I have with me here today 3 panelists. I have Caspar, I have Kim, and I have Rogier. And to start this off, I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves briefly. So Rogier, would you do the honor and start?
Yeah, sure, Lasse. Thanks for having us, first of all. So my name is Rogier. I'm the managing director of Pymwymic, which is the oldest impact investor in Europe. We are already around since 1994, and have been investing in quite a big range of industries. But since 4 years, we are focusing on the transition of our food systems. So we are investing in early, Series A, Series B startup scale-ups who, in one way or the other, innovate or disrupt our food supply chain. We do that with a cooperative where we bundle, by now over 150 families and entrepreneurs who then, as a feeder fund, invest in those portfolio companies, but also we attract institutional capital to further catalyze what we call traditional money into impact. What differentiates us from other investors is, I think mainly that although we are for profit, we are investors, so also our LPs require a return. But impact and impact embedding specifically is really at our core. So we work together with the entrepreneurs to really define an impact strategy and to define impact KPIs, which we can track over a length of 5 years.
All right, great. And you're based in Amsterdam. I think we'll get back to that a little later on. One of our entrepreneurs mentioned that that's an ecosystem well worth looking into when it comes to impact. Let's move on to Kim. Will you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm 50 years old. I'm actually living here in Aarhus in Denmark. And I did my first exit on an impact company like 10 years ago. And since then, I have done a lot of different investments, mainly in impact companies, actually. And today I have a small fund called Kick Green Invest. And through that company, I'm investing in impact companies, but mainly concentrated in the green transition. So an example could be Visblue. They are producing sustainable batteries, bigger stationary batteries. Finergy is another company producing electrical heat pumps. And another one is a software company called Anyday. They are producing software for energy communities. So these are just 3 examples.
Great. Thanks for joining in, Kim. And then we have Caspar as the last member of the panel today. Caspar, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Lasse. Yes, my name is Caspar Høgh, and I'm the founding partner of Noon Ventures. And at Noon Ventures, we invest into proven transformative technologies and companies with the potential to make sort of a significant impact on either our environmental or climate challenges. So that's kind of our core focus. We take a slightly different approach to most sort of early stage investors in that we are sort of a lot more operational in our investments than the sort of traditional venture capital, where most of them take sort of more of a passive approach. And I mean, our approach is sort of very founded on an understanding that companies and probably especially impact are very technical technically sort of biased companies need more than just traditional just capital and access to capital to succeed. So what we do is we typically involve ourselves in all aspects of the business and kind of see ourselves as more sort of partners to the founders, and try to involve the experience of our team and investors and advisors across all what we call sort of mission critical disciplines of the company, which could sort of vary from sort of developing a strategy to customer introductions, financing activities, etc. But yeah, so Noon Ventures, based in Copenhagen, started only last year, and within sort of the full impact spectrum, we are, just like Kim also mentioned, sort of only focused on climate and environment.
Gotcha. Thank you. So I'm looking forward to have you guys share your ideas and opinions about the topics that we'll dive into now. And I think the first one that we'll dive into is talking a little bit about some of the trends that's happening right now. I mean, you guys see a lot of pitch decks and future ideas and interesting things coming in from entrepreneurs, which I assume also gives you an overview of some of the interesting trends that's happening out there right now. Kim, can you maybe highlight a couple of the topics that you see right now is starting to really grow and attract some attention from the investor perspective?
Yeah, of course. Being an engineer, this is so exciting. It's unbelievable. The excitement is so high at the moment. It's really interesting. And being part of this segment for many years, even before it was top of the agenda, I have a good understanding of all the technologies and the development since early days. But I think, as I see it right now, it's the balancing of energy systems and the conversion of energy from one energy system into another. And the area where a lot of money would go and probably be the most invested area for the next 10 years is the green transition, where we have electricity, green electricity coming from wind turbines or solar. And we have to convert that. Of course, either we use it directly or we have to convert it into something where we could store it or use it in another way. And therefore, storage technologies for electricity, like PTX technologies, of course, but also battery technologies would be of most importance. But also conversion technologies where we convert green electricity into green district heating, where we could store the electricity as heat. Not necessarily using the heat at that point, because we are now working on huge storage systems here in Denmark and elsewhere. So we can store the heat and use the heat when we need it. And that is where, of course, where electrical heat pumps are coming into the game. So there are many new technologies coming up in that area, and it's not easy technologies. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of money to get there. But there will be also a lot of money available in this segment, I'm sure. Yeah. So this is where I focus, but also I think this is one of the areas where we would see trends and tendencies.
And Caspar, you were sort of within the same space. Do you have anything to add to the trends that Kim highlighted here?
No, I very much agree that that's sort of the whole, everything is happening with the energy is probably one of the drivers, so the most significant drivers we see at the moment. But if we just go sort of from a very high level perspective, and sort of what is going to drive, what is going to significantly drive a change to, I think, the business landscape as we know it and the way we live our lives, basically, are sort of what we've identified as four sort of overarching macro drivers, essentially, right? I think what we see is, first of all, and this isn't rocket science, I think everyone agrees to this, but I think what we see is a very strong change in consumer sentiment, where we see not only sort of consumerism as we know it and that what we've sort of experienced it over maybe the last 50 years, sort of only growing, is now on a decline, and we see consumers changing their preference always towards the sort of the most sustainable solution. We see talent availability. So all the the smart people in the world and the biggest talents are increasingly shifting towards wanting to work with climate and environment. And what we also see is that they refuse to work for companies that sort of counter the positive development. We see major things happening in terms of regulatory change, which will drive a lot of things. And the last thing is sort of capital abundance, which I think especially over the last year or so, and especially during COVID, has really changed. I think the way I usually say it is that, when we fundraised for our small fund here, is that was pre-COVID, and we went out and we talked to investors, and what they usually said is we had to tell them, you can make an impact to the environment and make a profitable business. And only a year ago, you actually had that discussion. And when you say that to people today, they're going to say, yeah, sure, we all understand that, kind of move on, right? Yeah. So there's been a sort of a really sort of a significant mindset shift over the last year. And I think if you look at those sort of 4 trends, that is going to what's so the most profound difference in the way that we see a lot of these things going forward. And I usually sort of try to compare it to, I started out my career out as a consultant, and I used to do digital strategies for companies, right? And this was kind of the sort of 2010-ish. And I think the journey we saw with digital strategies is what we're going to see with climate going forward, is that, we used to have a focus on digital, and 10 years down the line, there's a consensus to say, if digital isn't kind of an ingrained part of your business, you're already dead, kind of, right?
So it's not I think we're going to talk about now, but in a few years we won't especially talk about it as a thing. It's just there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just like digital today, people aren't talking about their digital strategies, right? It's part of how you do business, and I think we'll see the same thing happen to climate relatively fast, also.
Roger, do you have anything to add? I think the guys gave a good overview, but maybe you have some extra pointers for this topic.
Well, I actually prefer to indeed stay with on the same level as Caspar. I personally believe that it's just becoming more the new norm, even with the new regulations coming up. Especially from a fund regulator perspective, you are actually forced to have an impact strategy or to report, and whether that's SDGs or ESG reporting. You have different definitions of impact, right? But you do see a trend where it's more integrated in every decision that people make. It's still an immature market. Let's not forget the impact industry in general, and it also allows a lot of what I would call greenwashing. You have impact and you have impact, and I do believe that. As an investor, and an investor in a fund, you need to be quite careful to not assume that even the bigger 500 or 400 million funds, which promise you returns of multiple fold, whether that can be truly impact and can be truly supporting innovation and disruption, where new markets and new demands need to be created. But the trend is there, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. But that actually brings us to the next point here, some of the challenges when building and investing in impact startups. So what are some of the things that you guys meet as investors when it comes to some of the challenges investing in impact startups? What are the typical issues that we're dealing with here? Roger, maybe you mentioned one here, the figuring out, are they doing impact? Are they just saying impact? Because it's what we need to say these days.
Well, in principle, and again, there's no right or wrong. And that's often also a problem with the market as such, that people want to make sure that their impact or their way of measuring impact is the best way. Actually, we don't believe that. Everybody with a good intention and having the aim to contribute something positive may be defined as impact. But in general, what we see with impact companies or innovation and disruptors, often they're early stage, and that's not per se linked towards impact as such. But often they are trying to create a new market demand. Even if you look at alternative foods as well, like you need to get people away from the stigma that meat is the only way to go. So you need to create a new market, besides the fact that you have all the other challenges of being an early stage company. I do believe that by now also policies and regulations are supporting these innovators. But in principle, the main, again, and I want to stick to that main point, the main challenge for true impact entrepreneurs is the fact that besides the fact that they're early stage and they have the common challenges like every scale up, they also face the fact that they need to create a new market demand.
Yeah, that's so measuring and creating a new market. It's very interesting. Kim, do you have any additions to the topic?
Yeah, I think, but it's of course very much influenced by the companies that I'm working with. And what I do see is it's a long journey. I think that's the challenge, and a long journey takes, durable people, that the team are able to work for 10 years for the idea, and finance during that long period of time is important. So that, many of these ideas are growing out of universities, and then they, after maybe 5 years living in that world, a guy is jumping out, taking the idea with him and starting maybe at home in his garage, and then he gets a small investor helping him, and so it's really a long journey. And I do see that is probably the toughest part of this, and many times during that process you tend to give up because you think this is not possible.
Caspar, you meant? Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because it's so difficult. But I think it's the length and the money, and to finance that.
The stamina.
Yeah.
Caspar, you mentioned the issue a year ago that you had to convince people that it was not just philanthropy. There was actually business also when we talk about this, and that it's not just for the sake of changing the world, but there's also business in this. Is that a topic also when you talk to LPs and when you think about the financing strategy and co-investments maybe with other investors to carry that message into the deals?
So I think the lack of positive return traction is an issue when you talk to investors, right? I mean, we've had a first wave of green technologies that people invested heavily into back in sort of 2004 or 5-ish, where the first generation of solar panels, etc., came out, and people lost a lot of money on that back then, right? So when you talk to some of the bigger institutional investors today, they will still remember that, and they will still challenge the fact whether you at a early stage investments actually can make decent return when we talk about green technologies, right? But I very much agree with what both Roger and Kim said. I mean, the reality is, and I've been working with sort of internet tech for the past many years. And the reason that people have a tendency to say that that's a shorter journey, so to say, is because of the power of the internet to scale businesses, right? Yeah. And when you talk about businesses that will make a profound difference for our environmental challenges, they are often, technically grounded, right? So a lot of these founders are technical founders who will often lack the commercial expertise, experience, know-how of how to build a business, right? So what we're really dealing with, and the challenge for me basically is that we're talking about scaling production companies, where you start taking a technology and building a real company to produce physical products around that, which is why people have a harder time from an investment standpoint to relate to it than what they have had with internet technology for the past 20 years, where that's been where the majority of capital have sort of shifted towards, right?
Yeah. That's a very, very valid point. I
also think so. The solution for me is that you need to get the people with the experience of having built technical companies from the ground to engage themselves with the new generation of founders coming out, right? Sure. So I mean, a lot of these issues and challenges that is the issue for those farmers today, I think you can actually put that into a formula. So when people have done it before, I think it's important that these people sort of engage themselves with the next generation.
And I think also in this area, just a comment to you, Caspar, because I think all what you said is so right. I think industrial collaboration or even governmental collaboration is extremely important in this. An industrial product, you produce it, but then to release it into the market as a new technology, to have the first customer, it takes a lot of guts from your side, but definitely also from the customer side, to dare to buy it, and because typically this is expensive products. There, I actually do see that government and local governments are not doing their job efficiently enough. They couldn't be first mover and say, well, this is our responsibility to take this product out, test it, buy it and test it. And this is what now you mentioned, the collaboration we made with the Aarhus local government, which is very important. But I tell you, I mean, it takes like just as much time for me to start that collaboration than developing the product. It's not easy because it's complicated organizations. But I think there is a kind of understanding from the local governments that they have to take part and they have to help, because otherwise it's so difficult that it may not be successful in the end.
True. I guess it's a learning process for all of us, and there's a lot of willingness to take risks here from all sides of the equation. And I think that actually brings us on to the topic that I wanted to finish off with here, to talk about the ecosystem, because it's not just the entrepreneurs, it's not just the investors, it's not just the startups that's being built. It's actually multiple different components that that this ecosystem is consisting of: the public industry, corporates coming in, the university playing a role, and so on. Rogier, earlier this week we had a conversation with one of the founders of a impact startup in Aarhus called Pont, Thomas. He mentioned the Netherlands and Amsterdam as a great example of a very well functioning impact ecosystem. Can you maybe highlight a couple of things that you see in your ecosystem? I know it's difficult when you're right there in it to see what the good drivers are, but maybe some of the things that's really playing out well for ecosystem or for impact startups.
Yeah, I think and it's a bit also relating to the discussion that we just had. I personally believe that private capital is a market mover and public capital is a market scaler. So the wish of governments and bigger corporates to join, we all have that wish, but we also unfortunately know that the bigger organizations, in whichever shape or form, they don't move fast, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why private capital remains really, I would say, the starting point, and that's also how it started in the Netherlands, quite specifically, where private investors started investing, and Pymwymic also specifically, with the idea of the 3 Ps, right? People, planet, profit. That was all before the bubble and the hype around impact investing. And that's how things got rolling. And then you get proof points. You need proof points in this market, because indeed, if you also talk about the first solar cells, the first solar cells were not per se the biggest success, but they were required to develop the solar cells that we have nowadays. But then still, you also need some proof points to bigger investors to see, okay, this actually works. And that's how it actually went within the Netherlands. Because there was more private capital available, more entrepreneurs started doing different things. Because more entrepreneurs started doing things, you had more success stories. Because you had success stories, then also bigger corporates joined, and that is, and then nowadays we are in a phase where there's even a non-for-profit organization which is called Co-Financing Our Future, where we all as impact investors, and that's very broad, right? That's from the bigger banks, which have an impact department, towards us, towards more non-for-profit foundations who do philanthropy. They all come together, well, it is twice a year, to discuss what are the main pain points and how can we support the industry and us as a impact environment to move forward. So I think that is a great example of how it in the end can be. And then, it's more cooperating, and it's even, and that's maybe quite nice to mention as well, it's even becoming a fact that there's competition.
Yeah.
Right, there's competition. So for entrepreneurs, that's also nice that there's actually competition for investors with that background. That creates a complete different dynamic. So that's, and indeed, I think the US is even, I think from a scale perspective, way bigger from that perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are indeed in the Netherlands quite strong. And we are now also, if I look at our member base, we are seeing quite a nice inflow, especially from Belgium, which is, getting there as well. So yeah, work in progress. It's a bit like an oil spill.
I guess you guys also, not to make a joke out of it, but you guys are going to be some of the first ones to suffer if the ice is melting. So there's a natural deadline.
That's absolutely true.
That's the brutal truth here. Caspar
but I'll also, like, on the other, just to make a remark on that, like Dutch in general, going Dutch is an expression as well, to make a joke, right? So they are quite keen to make sure that the investments that they do are the right investments, and the fact that there's quite a big flow towards impact is a good sign on itself.
Caspar and Kim, you guys are part of the at least the Danish ecosystem here, one from Aarhus and one from Copenhagen. If I could grant you guys one wish, maybe some of the things you heard from Rogier, or maybe other things that you've seen other places that we could have established here in the impact ecosystem in Denmark, what would it be? Caspar, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So what we see is, obviously, with our investment focus, that we are extremely focused on finding the right, truly sort of transformative technologies, and make sure that they get to the marketplace where they can truly sort of make an impact also, right? Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things that we see as lacking in Denmark at the moment is the ability to take those extremely powerful and great ideas that we have in the universities, and it actually goes for all the universities in Denmark. We see extraordinary research being done on important environmental topics, and we need to be better at taking the research from the lab, so to say, and into the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And you continue to sort of make the reference around ecosystem, and this will truly be sort of an ecosystem effort, right? Because it requires multiple stakeholders, from regulatory to sort of universities, to early stage investors, and to institutions to be able to make that happen, right? But I think that will be, for me, one of the key success drivers for us to really not only sort of build a national stronghold within our green technologies, but also to get the right technologies out there that will make the difference required.
And how about you, Kim? One wish or one initiative?
One wish, I would say as an investor, and here I'm talking more about being a kind of a business angel type of investor, I would call myself. I think we have to bridge business angel capital coming from business angels to the next level of investment, and there we have to build a bridge, and it's not there at the moment. It's very difficult from the early funding to move on into the next level, and VCs are many of these companies that I'm investing in is typically too early for the bigger money, and therefore, as an angel, you keep on pushing, you invest more and more, but the bridge is long. It's not even built. One Christmas wish I had was a new president in the US, of course, because that would bring all these impact companies and the green transition on the agenda even more than it was before. And that was actually my Christmas wish, and that one was brought to us. Again, financing and bridging financing and being better talking to each other from the angel networks that I'm participating in to the bigger capital that is needed.
So we nailed the easy one, the new president, but the two wishes here that you guys have, we'll do our best to fulfill that. Roger, do you have any final things? I mean, you are not in the Danish ecosystem per se, but you, at least in the European context, are things that we can work on to make the impact industry even better.
Well, let's wish that other countries follow a bit faster than Netherlands in this regard.
That's we'll do our best then.
Yeah.
Great. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining in and sharing your views and your experience. Thank you for joining the Grow Impact Days, and we'll again I'll try to do my best to fulfill those wishes. So at least I know we're a lot of people sitting in on this call that now has a role to help me solve these big problems that we have to fulfill the wishes. So thank you very much for joining, and have a great day. So this concludes day number 2 of Grow Impact Days. It's safe to say that there are a lot of positive things going on in the investor ecosystem when it comes to investing in impact startups, but also that there are still some challenges that we need to solve together. And that's one of our main priorities, taking this initiative forward, to look into some of the things that we've learned today and how we as a community can collaborate to solve some of the challenges that we see out there. I really hope that you'll join us tomorrow, where we'll talk about a topic that's been mentioned multiple times today as well: the collaboration between corporates, startups, and the public industry in making the entire ecosystem work together. Thank you very much.